Okay, welcome to the show, Augie.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Augie.
So
Glad to
great
be here.
talk to you.
Most definitely, yes. Yes, it's
Yeah,
good to
and
talk
it's
to you
been a
again.
very long time. So as I mentioned in the intro that Augie and I have been friends for many years, and it wasn't until recently that I knew you were always into gardening, but I guess I didn't realize how much you were into gardening until I saw your article in the Burpee blog. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just been a great experience. I mean, it was complete shock when I got that. I just, me and a friend of mine that's in the gardening group that I'm in, we recommended each other, I guess kind of the way that friends do, like, hey, you should try for this. Well, you know what, I'm putting your name in as well. And no, it was just a great surprise. They have such a just a wide variety of folks that have been accepted. And I'd mentioned this before that some of them they had mentioned in the Instagram post, they had put all of our names in there, and then they said, we've got followers, or we've got people that have 5,000 followers, and then we have somebody that's got 100. And I had to call myself out in the Instagram post and
That's
say,
me.
hey everybody, that's me. Nice to meet you.
Well, we all start somewhere, that's for sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you got into gardening.
So, one of the things that really is just a really, really strong childhood memory for me is just growing up around it. My father, my grandmother, my grandfather, I was just always around vegetable gardens. And there's just nothing like biting into a fresh fruit or vegetable right off the vine. That's something that's just always stayed with me, as a young child. I used to hate tomatoes, and my cousin dared me, when we were in our grandmother's garden, to eat a tomato. And I'm not one to back down on a dare, even at 8 years old or whatever I was back then, and bit into it. And it tasted just completely different, from what you would get, at the store out of the can. And that just always stayed with me.
That's crazy, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. There really is nothing like it, and I'm glad I get to experience that now, because there was a long period of time where I just put everything on pause, until I became an adult. I don't know, about 2 years ago, which is how long I've really been taking the gardening thing, just really taking it, just grabbing it by the horns and just going full steam ahead. Yeah, I'd say for the last 2 years. I've been playing around with it since about 2010, but we're talking just going to Lowe's and throwing stuff in the ground and crossing my fingers and hoping it lives.
Right.
And most of the time it didn't.
That's me. That's me today.
That's the Galenas method.
Well, I'm living proof then, that you can, with just a little bit more understanding on how it works, that you can really do well in the garden. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you come up with your name? That's very intriguing. Unkempt gardener.
It's just, it's not a name anybody gave me. I gave it to myself. It's
Like
it just
T-Bone
really.
on Seinfeld?
I'm assuming. Yes, I'm assuming. I was waiting. It's funny. I was really prepping myself for a Seinfeld joke, so I'm glad it came on so early. But one of the things I really got it just kind of from my dad. He would show me. I'd say, oh, I'm having trouble with this, and he would get some sticks and just some stuff laying around, and he would construct something that was a solution to all my problems, and instead of just going to a hardware store and spending $20 on something. And I shaved today. You should have seen me this morning. You wouldn't have had to ask that question as to why the other reason I call myself the Unkempt Gardener is because when I'm not working, my face is shaggy, and I wore a clean shirt. This one's a nice shirt. Yeah, I spared no expense today. So this is not my normal look. That's the other side of it right there. It's just matching my personality with how I approach the garden. Yeah.
Cool. So you're in San Antonio. I didn't mention this right now. I hadn't mentioned this, but you are in San Antonio with us, and we are starting already to heat up.
Yeah.
And
this morning, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was pretty warm outside. I went for a walk right before this. So what are you putting in the ground right now?
Okay, great question.
Mhm.
So right now, because there's something called a first and last frost date that the Farmer's Almanac puts together, and that
Mhm.
really helps you plan your gardening. We're lucky down here in South Texas; we get 2 growing seasons. A lot of places up north they get 4 to 6 months, and that's it. Then the
Mhm.
ground is shut down after that. So using that, you can determine what plants you can plant, in our spring season as well as our fall season, which is nice. Right now, obviously, as of just 2 days ago, we're in the spring season. Right now, I've got cucumbers that I put in the ground. I've got onions, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, which I'm really excited about. I've never grown
Wow.
eggplants yet. I'm growing those from seed. So I've never even grown them, period, even picking up transplants from the store. So
Mhm.
I'm very excited about that. Those are the main things I'm growing. In the very near future, I'm going to put some herbs in the ground, things like basil, dill. Those are a couple of things that not only just for the flavor that you get, it's nice having a pantry outside, but they also have bug and pest repellent
Right.
abilities. So yeah.
Mm.
And I'm also playing around with some flowers. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce them because I've never grew them before, but I think it's nasturtiums. I'm
Mhm.
growing those because there's kind of an old school thought process that they help tomatoes taste better. So of course I've got those just everywhere around my tomatoes right now.
Nice.
And marigolds are good for pest
You know
control
what?
too, right?
I left marigolds out. I haven't planted them yet. I'm going to be out of town next week, but one of the first things I'm going to do is plant some marigolds and some
Mhm.
sunflowers.
Oh,
The
nice.
the other reason I've started doing flowers this year is because I want to get more pollinators just
Mhm.
circulating. I do have this huge butterfly. She's about that big that visits me every day at about
Mhm.
11 o'clock on the dot. And last year I had a couple of bumblebees, and I really want to get some more coming in because it's just great to be out in the garden and just seeing all this life around you. It's
Mhm.
it's it's one of the things that's really relaxing about it, therapeutic.
Right. So a lot of the things that you're putting in the ground now, you've kind of started earlier though, because you have a
Hmm.
greenhouse, right?
Yes, I have a greenhouse, but believe it or not, down here, you can only use a greenhouse maybe 3 to 5 months out of the year. We're
Mhm.
talking like October to right about now. If
Mhm.
I were to give me just 1 second, okay, so right now, I don't know what the temperature is outside, but I've got this thermometer here that shows me what the temperature is in my greenhouse. It's 89 degrees, and I've got the door and the window open. If I
Mhm.
close that, it'd probably be about 100 degrees in there. And in a month, it's going to be the surface of Venus, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah.
what I mainly use to more accurately answer the question is behind me, I've got this rack and I've got 4-inch shop lights right here. I've got LEDs up here and down here. I've got, 4-foot shop lights down here. So starting in December is when I start my peppers because those take almost a month to sprout and then 2 months after that to grow. I'll grow them indoors. And then right now, what I'm doing is I'm moving them. To your point, what I do is I kind of stagger it. So I have my greenhouse. When they get too big in here, I put them in my greenhouse when it gets about 60 to 75
Mhm.
degrees in there. And then when it starts moving towards that Venus level of heat, that's when I pull them out of the greenhouse and I put them in soil outside. So yeah,
Awesome.
you don't have to do that, but if you want to start from seed, I really recommend doing something
Mhm.
like that. But if you were to just go to like a local nursery, which I'd really recommend doing, getting some maybe plants that are about that tall, you could go today and get some and put them directly in the ground. And not everybody shares I don't know if you want to call it passion or not, but I mean, I've been doing this since December, and
Mhm.
now it's just starting to come to fruition outdoors. So if you wanted to save a little bit of time and you're not really ready for something like that, I totally understand. Still go with a local nursery. I highly recommend a local nursery that are knowledgeable. They'll answer your questions. They know what they're doing.
So when you do that, my grandpa was a farmer. And
Mhm.
so, but when you do this, do you keep like a journal or kind of a log of like when you plant stuff and when you move it, or do you just kind of, because he kind of did like some, but I think a lot of it, he did it for so many years, he just kind of knew.
I'm smiling because I have like 3 journals that have
Mhm.
about 2 pages filled out on each of them of very, very good info. But then I want to, but it's just not in my play style. Now,
Mhm.
to everybody that keeps a journal, I highly recommend it if that's something that you can do. what I found for me, because I'm more of a kinetic, a doer type learner and more of a visual learner, that's where social media has really come into play for me, because I look at my Facebook album. I just recently got on Instagram, but I look on my Facebook album from 2 years ago. It's so funny. I'll look at it and there's all this positivity in there. Oh, look at my cucumbers, look at my squash. And I'm like, you moron, what are you, you're doing it all wrong. You didn't know anything back then. So that's my journal, I guess. But paper, if some of us are planners and some of us are really good with paper, journals, go for it. Because if you have the wherewithal that I don't, to go back and say, what did I do? Then most definitely I'm all for it.
Well, and it kind of is. It's kind of what you were doing. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But if we didn't have Facebook, I'd be terrible at it. I would still have those 3 journals with the first 2 pages filled out.
Okay. So you and I had talked a little bit before about some of the eco-friendly aspects that you try to incorporate in your gardening. Can you talk a little bit about like recycling and things that you do in your garden?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I love, trying to find new and creative ways to use stuff that most people just see as trash. The biggest one for me.
We do that too.
Good. Everybody should, I wish more people did. It's just, I understand that some people, it's not in the forefront of their head. So, but everybody should, we've got a responsibility, not to get preachy or anything, but probably the thing that really impacts my garden the most is going to be the homemade compost. And a lot of people think, well, I don't have the room for it. Or, I don't have the materials for it, but we throw stuff away every day that we can use as compostable material. I even have some stuff right here, actually. That's funny. Like paper towel rolls, you can shred these up. You can use table scraps. You can even go to a coffee shop, just call them in the morning and say, can I have your coffee grounds at the end of the day? I can hit up 3 coffee shops on the way home from work and have about 25 pounds of coffee grounds. Wow. If you mix coffee grounds, cardboard, newspaper products, things like that, also other stuff, leaves, little table scraps, in 4 to 8 months, you can have some really good compost, and you've taken that stuff out of landfills. Here's why that's important. Landfills, sure, if you were to throw coffee grounds, all the materials I showed you, into a landfill, eventually it's going to break down. But it's also, because it's stacked so high up, it's going to release more methane than it would if you were to have it like in a compost bin, say, or in a compost heap. Plus, when I make this stuff here, it's nourishment for my plants. When I'm digging my holes, I throw some down, put the plants down, bury it, put some on top. It's slow release nutrients for them, and it really is the best thing for them, as well as the worms in the ground. That's another topic altogether. Another thing that I like to do, and I know that we have this down in San Antonio, and it's actually a pretty popular thing down here in San Antonio too, is the bulk pickup through waste management that we have twice a year. I'll jump in the car, borrow my dad's truck, and I'll go around, and you'd be surprised at some of the stuff that people throw away or that consider trash and are having them take to a landfill. And I can always spot a former gardener, somebody in your shoes, Larissa. Sometimes I'll drive by.
You should check out our garage.
Sometimes I'll drive by somebody's house and I'll just see 6, 7, 8 pots, pallets, bamboo poles that you can use as stakes. I mean, there's just so much stuff out there, and I'll just load that stuff up and reuse it. In fact,
I might have some stuff for you. So.
Well, okay. I'll bring a bottle of wine or something, and we can barter.
For sure.
Even stuff like here we go right here. I collect rainwater in these, I'll get these from friends, or when I use them and they run out, and I'll just collect rainwater under the storm drain near my house. And, if it rains for about 20 or 30 minutes, I can fill up about, 10 of those. And that's good for my plants inside when I'm growing, when I'm starting my seeds indoors. They really like the rainwater. It's really the best thing for them.
That's great. And, we'll talk about this in a little bit. You do videos for new gardeners, but ma'am. I can just say, I can tell that you're an amazing teacher, Because you brought props to an interview. That's how awesome that is you're at an interview and you're like pulling out props. So
I think what it is I just set up the right environment. This is my guest bedroom that used to just be devoid of everything. And when I got into gardening a couple years ago, it's just full. Like I'm not going to pan around. I'm embarrassed to say how full it is of gardening. So that's why I'm literally like, oh yeah, this is part of the conversation right here. You know, this just happened to be here. It did just happen to be here.
That's awesome.
Well, that's actually a good segue. Let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel. So when did you start that?
I started it, if I remember correctly, back in July of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I was only doing videos maybe once every month and a half, 2 months, just as topics came up in the gardening group. And I specifically put it together to help us in the gardening group, because when you have a brand new person that says, I'm paraphrasing here, but I don't even know what I don't know, and I don't know what questions to ask, but I feel like this is a hobby that I can be passionate about. We want to be able to answer those questions, you know, instead of saying something like, well, read a book or Google this or Google that, you know, I thought that, you know, me being an admin in that group, you kind of attach a person to this topic, and you have somebody that you can go to for questions. They're also good conversation starters, but yeah, I base them off of just common questions that I would see in the group. Like the first one is about knowing your planting zone. Very common question in the group. And then I build on it. We start talking about growing specific things like peppers, or specific strategies like how to grow those seeds. You know, you can use paper towels, you know, you can grow them. You don't have to germinate them in soil, things like that. And then there are times, like actually I just uploaded a video yesterday where I pull it back a little bit. Okay, so we've gotten into these things like how to prune your pepper plants or how to grow this specific seed. Well, now it's the start of spring. We've got, I would say, close to maybe 100 to 250 people a day with member requests. All these new people, again, people that may not even know what questions to ask. So I put together a video about, you know, the 6 things you should consider when starting a garden. And it doesn't solve all the world gardening problems in that video, but what it does is my goal is to open a dialogue, you know, with these folks so that they know what questions. And I tried something a little different with this video that I'm really interested in. I wanted to put together a video that a parent can watch with their child at the same time, where it will hold their attention. You know, the child may not understand everything that's going on, but it's going to help engage the child. Hey, look at all these things that we can grow together. Meanwhile, the parent is, you know, hopefully listening to me, you know, during the video. So that's something that I want to start gravitating the videos towards. It's something that's really important to me is teaching young folks, teaching children how to do this, because I'm a product of that. You know, whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally, you know, 35 years ago, that has always stayed with me. You know, those little stories about being in grandma's garden, you know, and taking on a dare.
Well, and that's amazing too, because, you know, even if the parents don't take away so much from it, and I'm going to make an awesome gardening pun here, you're planting the seed in kids, so that when they get, so that when they get to, you know, that age where they can say, hey, I want to do this myself, whether or not, you know, I've got a parent to help me, they'll have that knowledge that you've kind of, you know, started.
Exactly. I mean, children, young folks, they attach themselves to inspiration. They do. And I've noticed that they gravitate towards growing stuff, you know, be it plants or anything else, you know. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's why they like puppies and kittens, you know, they want to raise, you know, watch this puppy grow up into something lovable and adorable. So, I think they're just naturally drawn to things like that.
I'm just going to bet right now that Larissa had that planting the seed in front of her on an index card or something. She was just going to try to work that pun in somewhere.
I feel like I should have written down a couple of puns as well. Yeah, we could duel for a little while.
Yeah, right.
Hey, just to clarify real quick for folks, when you were referring to the group, we're talking about your closed Facebook group, right?
Yes, thank you. It's called Gardening for Beginners. We've there's a couple out there that are called Gardening for Beginners that we're not associated with. Ours, I want to say we hit about 75,000 people a week or two ago. So it's going to be round about, we've got, yes, we've,
Wow.
we've got 8 admins, including myself, and
Wow.
we earn the pay that we don't make. Whatever that amount would be, we would be earning it. But we all do it because we love it. I mean, I think that's how we can manage and organize a group like that with so few admins, is that we're also very much passionate about it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And patient.
Yeah, so we'll have links to all of your stuff in the show notes, so just so you know. But just wanted to clarify for folks that they're thinking, and they were wondering what group that was, if it was a membership site.
And if I may say, I know it sounds like a large group, but we want more people in there. We want as many people as possible. We are full of folks that just can't wait to just impart their knowledge on you. We're all very helpful. We love those beginner questions. It's in the name. So we're happy to help. It's not just for folks that are seasoned pros, but we do have some seasoned pros that are in there that do love helping other people, just practice their hobby.
That's good to know too, because I think some people can get intimidated and feel like, am I asking a dumb question? Or this is going to sound stupid. So,
and on the flip side, there's some Facebook groups out there where the moderators or the admins may be kind of jaded. It's just human nature. It's not a front against them. It's just, so if they've been in a group like that, they're like, am I going to see that here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you do, send me a message.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it.
That's so important. It really is, because Larissa and I are very active in our closed Facebook group, and you do have to be careful because, we call ours a no bully zone, meaning that everybody needs to be respectful. And I think as an admin, we're in there every day, just making sure that no one's picking on anyone and everybody feels welcome to ask the questions that they want to ask. It should be fun.
We want it to be a safe, fun, friendly environment for everybody. We don't want anybody to feel intimidated, insulted, belittled, any of those things, because while there are a lot of people that are passionate, some folks that come in that are interested in learning, it might just take one interaction like that and they just drop it. And we don't want that. We failed if that happens. And
that's exactly the way we look at it with Vegetarian Zen. That's why we say, if somebody was thinking about going more plant-based, even if it was just a meatless Monday and you turned them off because you had to beat your chest or call something out for not being 100% vegan, then we lost that. We lost the big war. We lost the war. You may have won a little battle by getting in your little jive, but you lost the war.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more, Vicki.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Larissa, I know you wanted to ask a question about, because we've been gardening challenged in the past.
Which she says we, but she means me.
I'm being a good spouse. I'm being a good spouse.
Being supportive.
Right. So what are some easy plants? Because we were talking before we started recording, but I tend to kill things. I have good intentions, but they look at me and they're like, "Oh God, here she comes." But what are some easy plants or vegetables for beginners to grow who may have had bad experiences in the past?
So, are you wanting to use containers, or is it something that, do you have room outside, or what were you thinking?
Well, where we are right now, we can't put anything in the ground. We just don't. We've got 2 dogs. We've got, we don't have a whole lot of space. We don't want to dig up the ground because we're probably going to be moving, and so in the past I had some raised, not raised beds, but boxes that were actually up on legs. And they're really good quality boxes. I had them for a number of years before they just kind of got beaten down by the weather. But the only issue with those is that they're not very deep. So I couldn't put stuff that had like really deep roots. And I mean, they were only like, 1.5 foot deep. So I had that. And then I had a bunch of kind of bigger pots and things like that. So that would be what I would use. Yeah.
So if, and just for all the listeners as well, there are places around town like bakeries where you can get food grade 5-gallon buckets. There are also places, especially, I don't know if I can mention names or not, but there are certain, okay, great. So Firehouse Subs, they're pickles. They come in these 5-gallon buckets. They sell them for $2, and it's a donation to the firemen. I don't know what association it is, but it supports firefighters. And you've got a 5-gallon pickle bucket. You can grow peppers, in those. You
Mhm.
can grow green beans, which green beans are really easy to grow, and they're really, it's almost like an immediate satisfaction because they only take about 4 days to sprout. So you water them for 4 days, and then you start seeing this life come up, and you're like, yay! You can actually get bush varieties of those that don't climb, because some green beans will climb 10 feet tall if you let them. But there are some that only get about 3 feet, and if you've got the room for that, you can have green beans.
Right.
There's also bush variety tomatoes. There's a term called determinant. You can go with those. Those are also ones that do not climb. So those are a couple of container-friendly ones. Of course, you've got herbs. An super easy herb to grow is basil.
Mm-hmm. And I used to do herbs, and I had pretty good success with them. And then I just, after I killed everything else, we said, all right, no more, so everything else kind of just,
Yeah, it's just about giving them enough light. Their spring vegetables are going to need 6 to 8 hours of direct sun. That's really important. So, something that's south facing, like if you have a balcony, you want to give it food, like a compost or some sort of. You can even go with a slow release organic granule fertilizer. I know they sell a lot of them are under $10, and if you just have a couple of plants, they're going to last you probably a couple years because they're slow release. Water, sunlight, water. If you're one of those folks that believes you need to talk to them every now and then, go for it.
So, and that's the other thing you said, south facing. Our house faces, the front of our house is due west.
Okay.
And so the back of our house is due east. So the front, in the afternoon, we have a metal door and you can't touch the door.
Yeah.
Because the sun, and then so we get full sun in the morning, and then nothing in the afternoon in the back. So,
yes.
yeah. So that's a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah. There's a section of my house in the backyard that is just off limits. I think I can probably grow moss there, and that's about it. Yeah. So those would be some of the vegetables. You can like during the winter, like maybe the fall months when I would say maybe around August through October, you can grow greens. Like you can grow lettuces, collard greens, mustard greens, carrots, and radishes. And radishes will grow really fast. It usually only takes about 2 or 3 months from start to finish. And you can fit in a 5-gallon bucket probably about 8 or 9 radishes in each one. So they taste really good right out of the ground. I love radishes.
Cool.
So what's the most challenging thing or maybe is there something that you've been trying to grow that you just can't, you haven't succeeded at yet, I should say, because I don't want to say can't, because you very well could. But
squash is my Achilles heel. And and that is one of the easy ones to grow too.
What do you think's so challenging about it?
I think it's a combination of pests and I think it's mainly pests because I think last year there's something called a squash borer that got in there and just got rid of it. But the other thing would be I probably just haven't been giving them enough room. I haven't dedicated enough the right environment for them. But this year I've got it set up. I'm winning this year, most definitely.
Awesome.
It's going to be right over there. It's literally right behind this window. I've got this set up. When I get back from my trip, I'm taking care of business. I'm going to win this year.
Augie versus the squash.
Yes, ma'am. The ever elusive squash.
Squash war.
Yes, exactly. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to
Awesome.
go. And I think one of the reasons I'm intentionally waiting is because I don't want to come back and go, they did it again. They did it again.
Right.
I was gone for a week and they did it again. So.
They're like, all right, he's gone. Let's go.
Exactly.
Well, Augie, we've really enjoyed having you on the show. Is there any parting advice you'd like to give to any of your listeners, our listeners, anyone that's aspiring to garden and thinking this is the year I'm going to start?
Yes. Don't, I mean, this is kind of cliched, but don't be afraid to fail. I tell this to a lot of gardeners that get discouraged, where maybe just something has happened out of their control. Out of about 50 seedlings, well, let's take that a bit farther, probably about out of 75 seeds that I planted, 50 sprouted. Out of those 50, about 35 or 40 reached a level to where I could actually move them to a new container. And out of those, maybe about 25 actually made it to where I'm putting them outside. So that is my barometer. That's my yardstick for success. And I've got wonderful, strong, that's the other thing. I know these plants are strong, out of 75, 25 made it. And they are strong plants. They're out in the yard. They're going to be doing well. And I would say, by April, May, June, I'm going to start seeing things like tomatoes, peppers. I mean, it's going to be great. So don't get discouraged by the small losses, because they're not really losses. Even in those situations, I kind of changed up some of the things that I did. I looked at the environment. What do these things like? What don't they like? What should I try differently next time? That's part of gardening. Just that would be the message that I would give folks, that when you fail, just look at what happened, because that's going to make you a stronger gardener.
Great. That's awesome. And you just gave me the idea. Maybe we need to go like on location next time and head on.
I'm all for it. Mi casa es su casa.
That's awesome.
I did want to say one other thing. I meant
Sure.
to mention this earlier when you brought up the YouTube channel. One of the things that I'm doing a little bit differently with this channel, I love jamming out in the garden. Okay.
Nice.
Soul, funk, 80s music. It doesn't matter. 70s pop music. I listen to little disco here and there, but not as much. I've put together 3 different playlists on my YouTube channel. If you go under playlists, and they're gardening music. So I've got soul and funk. I've got 70s pop, and I've got what I call 80s uplifting. Your Whitney Houston, your Taylor Dane, things like that. When I'm in that kind of mood, and let me tell you something: music in the garden, it really just makes the time so enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's just easier to be out there weeding or digging, and you've got some music. You've got a little soundtrack with you. So, for your viewers, please check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
That's great. And I've seen you karaoke, so I know you can get down. So.
I definitely don't hold back out there either. The yard is my audience, right?
Awesome.
Well, as I mentioned, we're going to link up to everything in the show notes. So thank you so much, Augie. And
you, Vicky.
Also, this is a little bit of a, like you said, what did you call it? An achievement unlocked, because
yes,
it's our first video podcast. So we're going to have the audio available, and we're also going to have this on your channel, and then we're going to have it on our channel as well. So folks have different ways to access this.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks again, Augie. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was a privilege. It meant a lot to me. I've been so excited about this, and this has been everything that I expected, and even more. Thank you. It was great talking with you guys about something that I love to do.
Awesome.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Augie.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today on Vegetarian Zen. We've created a free resource for you to show you 5 ways to sneak more fruits and veggies into your diet. You can download it right now by visiting vegetarianzen.com. Until next time, wishing you a happy body and a healthy mind.